Hello and welcome back to Sharpe's Canon. I'm your host, Captain Rutledge. When we last left Sharpe and Harper, Sharpe was wrongly accused of murder, roped into a plot by the vile French intelligence officer, Major Ducos, and with help from Harper, Sharpe cleared his name and led the South Essex to victory during the Battle of Vittoria. And now, I said we would get to it eventually, and now we're here. The single worst episode of Sharpe. Sharpe's Gold.
The novel Sharpe's Gold was originally the second Sharpe series novel written by Bernard Cornwell, published in 1981. It told the story of how Sharpe met his wife Teresa and uncovered a cache of Spanish gold, then surviving the destruction of Almeida.
Originally, Sharpe's Gold was going to be adapted to the screen while Paul McGann was still attached to the project. Cast members were even picked out and signed on to the episode. But then came the infamous football accident. Filming was delayed and the episode and cast had to be dropped. So, why didn't they film the episode at a later date? Legal reasons. Adapting the original script would require paying off the original cast as well, and considering the production crew couldn't even afford basic necessities for the cast, that was not happening.
The episode adaptation premiered in 1995, directed by Tom Clegg and written by Nigel Neal. Hugh Ross makes his debut as Wellington's new spymaster, Major Mungo Monroe, with guest actors Rosaline Linehan as Bess Nugent, Jane Ashburn as Ellie Nugent, Ian Shaw as Lieutenant Ayres, and Abel Folk as El Casco.
The only segment originally from the novel used in the adaptation was the scene of Sharpe defending one of his men from being taken off by the provosts. Just that scene. Only 3 chapters. Not much else. A whole different story was cobbled together, featuring General Wellington's cousins, deserting soldiers, and then a bunch of Spanish partisans who believe they're Aztecs. Ugh. Nigel Neal was not a bad writer. His best-known works were that of the Quatermass films and Halloween 3. But that's just it. Sharpe isn't a science fiction series or horror movie. It's a historical fiction series that sticks as closely as possible to real events. Perhaps if they could bring back Owen Harris, they may have come up with a decent episode that fits better with the Sharpe formula. But this, it's almost indecent.
Speaking of human decency, this round of Sharpe episodes was fraught with difficulty. Heavy drought in Crimea caused water shortages and rationing, barely even enough water to flush a toilet. Only the bare minimum of water was provided to the cast and crew, and things got worse from there. John Tams tried to quit the series, but instead was sent home for 2 weeks recuperation. Sean Bean and Dara O'Malley were given kickbacks to make things more bearable, but the biggest casualty was Michael Mears. Mears was denied water during filming and after a heated argument with producers was let go, hence why we don't see Rifleman Cooper after this episode. Everything culminated in a production strike. Sean and Dara barricaded the hotel until their demands for water for the cast and crew were finally met.
And quite frankly, it's getting on our tits.
Production of Sharpe was always rough, but reading through Jason Salke's memoirs and watching the video diaries of Rifleman Harris, it makes production of Sharpe's Gold look like a day-long colonoscopy.
So, our episode starts with Sharpe's light infantrymen deserting, then Rifleman Skillycorn, God that's a terrible name, being booked by the provosts for chicken theft.
Said it's a wild chicken, look, just a wild thing.
Wild!
Sharpe holds the provost at gunpoint, which causes friction between him and Wellington. And then Wellington's cousins, Bess and Ellie Nugent, show up, looking for Bess's missing husband.
2 women traveling through Spain unaccompanied? Real smart.
Ellie and Sharpe naturally fall in love. Then El Casco shows up. offering to exchange British deserters for rifles.
Again, trading valuable firearms for a band of lazy scumbags? Real smart. Hell, how did horse guards help to agree with it?
Sharpe and company and Lieutenant Ayres are sent off to deliver the rifles, with Bess and Ellie tagging along to find Mr. Nugent. There's a skirmish with French cavalry, Ellie and Sharpe play Ramrod the rifle, and then, finally, the trade.
Go on now, senor.
What the hell is that?
19th century Mesoamerican furries, everybody. I can't help but feel apathetic.
The Nugents ride away from Sharpe, suspicious of the cat guy and believing that he has Mr. Nugent held captive. Our Catco kills Bess and kidnaps Ellie, then finds Mr. Nugent is also imprisoned. Sharpe learns about the partisans that believe themselves to be Aztec, so they circle back, Harper kills Casco, and they blow up the caves. And happy ever after.
I can't. I just can't even. It's just so stupid. Frankly, if you're planning to do a Sharpe marathon, save this episode for when you're drunk with your friends. It's bad. It is that bad. I can't even compare it to the novel it is supposedly based on. So instead, I'm going to try and piece together the original script to see what could have been the true Sharpe's Gold.
What I think the story would be would start similarly to the episode we currently have, only set in 1810. Sharpe and the Light Company are marching to their next destination, and one of the men is nicked by the provost for stealing a chicken. Sharpe threatens the provost at gunpoint, then beats the man who stole the chicken.
Supposed to hit me.
If he hadn't have done, I would have. He've landed him in the shite. Grab your rifle.
Back at camp, Sharpe is brought before Wellington in connection with the incident, and is let off the hook after apologizing and slyly putting down the provost Lieutenant Ayres in front of superiors. At this point in the story, Hogan and Teresa arrive on the scene. Hogan enlists Sharpe in a mission to retrieve a cache of Spanish gold.
The thing with the Sharpe novels, each episode title plays into the story plot. So, Sharpe's rifles, Sharpe becomes leader of a platoon of his riflemen. Sharpe's eagle, Sharpe and Harper capture an Imperial eagle. Sharpe's company, Sharpe fights to maintain control of the South Essex Light Company. Sharpe's enemy, Sharpe versus Sergeant Hakeswell. Sharpe's honor, Sharpe maintaining a semblance of honor after dishonor. You get the idea. The original TV episode was called Sharpe's Gold. But where the hell was the gold? Show me the gold!
Anyhow, Hogan talks about one of his exploring officers going missing while trying to retrieve the gold. Guarded by the Spanish partisan and Teresa's fiancé, El Catolico, so called because he recites last rites while torturing his victims. Sharpe has to take his company across Spanish lines, led by Major Kersey, and Lieutenant Ayres tagging along, still suspicious about Sharpe.
Might as well get our money's worth out of the actor.
Sharpe and company eventually run into El Catolico, and we get a love triangle between Sharpe, Catolico, and Teresa. Asking about the Spanish gold, Catolico claims it was taken by the French, and offers an escort for Sharpe and his men back to British lines, with Teresa staying behind with him. Kersey is compliant, but Sharpe and Harper are suspicious. Sharpe and the chosen men double back after nightfall and dig up a fresh grave, thinking the gold is in there. But Catolico is too smart for them and ambushes Sharpe and the chosen men. However, good old Harper is wise to Catolico's tricks and finds the loot buried in a manure pile. Sharpe and the chosen men pretend to take Teresa hostage and run off with the gold in tow. As Sharpe and company run for the British lines, they are accosted by French cavalry, with Tongue being killed sounding out the warning call. But they are saved in the nick of time by Lieutenant Ayres and British dragoons sent out by Hogan.
The novels had Sharpe saved by the King's German Legion commanded by Captain Lasso. But thinking of the budget, I'd imagine the crew would have just reused characters to cut costs.
Sharpe's group is escorted to the nearest British frontier post, but the fort commander is unsure of who has claim over the Spanish gold. Soon, Catolico and the partisans arrive, claiming the gold for themselves. Kersey vouches for Catolico, showing his true colors. Ayres, however, stands by Sharpe's claim to the gold, but Teresa, torn between Sharpe and Catolico, remains somewhat neutral. However, nobody can leave the fort due to an ongoing French siege. That night, Sharpe tries taking matters into his own hands by extricating the gold for the British and making good his escape. Ayres, though skeptical of the legality, volunteers to help, and Teresa decides to join Sharpe as well. Sneaking through the night to the fort's strongroom, as French shells fly overhead, Sharpe and company are caught by Catolico, and a duel ensues. Ayres is wounded by a pistol shot, while Sharpe goes mano a mano with Catolico, slowly losing his advantage. He is wounded by Catolico's blade, but before he gets subdued, Teresa shoots Catolico dead. Harper manages to beat back the partisans to get to the strongroom, but with the fortress gates locked, there is no way out. Just then, a stray French shell ignites a trail of powder leading to the fort's magazine. Our heroes barricade themselves in the strongroom just before the fortress is destroyed in a massive explosion.
The novel took place during the Siege of Almeida, which ended in a massive gunpowder explosion. Probably one of the largest pre-nuclear explosions in history. Again, I doubt the production team had the budget for that, so a random British fort should fit the bill in this case.
Before the French can take control of what remains of the British garrison, Sharpe, Teresa, and everybody else packs up the gold and runs back to Lisbon, greeted warmly by Major Hogan. Wellington congratulates Sharpe on his successful mission, and after reading a report from a recuperating Lieutenant Ayres, grants him a month's leave in Lisbon. Sharpe and the chosen men pay tribute to Rifleman Tongue in a tavern, with even Hogan raising a glass to the deceased rifleman. When asked about the gold by Sharpe, Hogan mentions a new engineering project, the lines of Torres Vedras. We end the episode with Sharpe and Teresa in a warm embrace as she rides off to harry the French once more, and he marches off to serve another day.
Not a perfect adaptation, but it is serviceable to further cement Sharpe and Teresa's relationship, and a fitting send-off to Rifleman Tongue. And let's face it, it makes a whole lot more sense historically, coherently, and accurately when compared with whatever meowing Aztec Spaniards we got in the real episode.
The mind's a very funny thing, you know. I had an uncle once who thought the fairies were after him.
What happened to him?
I got him.
Well, thank you for watching, everybody. And stay tuned for next time, because Sharpe and Harper will march again. Good day.